Welcome to the Greater Manchester Virtual Apprenticeship Week. This session is called The Truth About Being an Apprentice, and I'm delighted to let you know that we are joined by 4 of the Greater Manchester Apprenticeship Ambassadors today. We've got Charlotte Stoddard from Trafford Council, Sipho Mangoye from People's History Museum, Lewis Johnstone from Brother UK, and Emma Nolan from Thales. I'll shortly ask them to introduce themselves, but the purpose of today is to find a little bit more about their apprenticeship experience, find out about their story and ask them a few questions about that. And we've also got some questions submitted from young people and parents today that we're also going to ask the ambassadors at the end. So first of all then, I would like Charlotte, if you could introduce yourself with your name, your employer, your apprenticeship or apprenticeships and your current job title.
Yeah, of course. So hi everyone, I'm Charlotte Stoddard. I work for Trafford Council and I'm currently undertaking my 3rd apprenticeship. It is a CIPD level 5 with HR consultancy. I've previously done a level 3 CIPD with HR support and a level 3 business administration apprenticeship. And my current job title is HR officer.
All right, thank you. Sipho, if you could introduce yourself.
My name is Sipho Mangoye. I'm currently working at the People's History Museum and I'm doing a level 3 content producer apprenticeship. So I'm approaching nearly a year now. So I'm actually prepping to do my endpoint assessment. And yeah, that's me.
Okay, Lewis.
Hi, I'm Lewis Johnstone. Work at Brother UK. I've worked here for about 2 years now. Passed my business administration level 3 around 5 or 6 months ago now, and my current job title is Products and Solutions Assistant.
All right, thank you, Lewis. And finally, Emma, please.
Hi, I'm Emma Nolan. I work for Thales UK. I'm doing a level 6 degree apprenticeship in software engineering. I'm halfway through my scheme. It's a 4-year course, so I'm just going into my 3rd year, and my job title is Apprentice Software Engineer.
Thank you very much. So I've got the first couple of questions and I think they roll quite nicely together. What did you do between leaving school or finishing your GCSEs and starting your apprenticeship, and why did you choose an apprenticeship? So if I can start with Lewis first of all, please.
Yeah, so when I was in around year 9 or 10, I went to college days and decided that I didn't really think college was for me, so I looked straight for apprenticeships whilst I was sitting my GCSEs in year 11. So I signed up for a company called the Apprentice Academy, and they sort of book your sessions, and you create like a CV and things like that there, and they send it off to employers which they think suit you the best. So did the sessions there, and they sent my CV off to Brother and a few other companies, and luckily first interview was at Brother, and that's the job I'm at now. So
excellent. So you went into apprenticeship basically straight after the end of year 11 then?
Yeah, I had about 4 or 5 weeks after finishing school and then started here.
Excellent. Now I think Emma, I think you had a slightly different journey, is that right?
Yeah, I definitely did. So in college there was obviously a lot of pressure to go to university. A lot of people always tell you have to go to university, but I just really didn't feel like uni was the right choice for me. And at the time there was a lot of like the earn as you learn slogan going around, so I started looking into apprenticeships, and then I found my apprenticeship through the university and I met Thales there as well. My interview was in early 2018, so that was my last year of year 13 as well. And I got the job on the same day, and then I signed the contracts about a month later. But then I only started working in September of that year, so my interview was in April and I only started working in September. So I started like my summer holiday in between, but I did have one day where I went into work and just had like an introduction day and got to meet everyone before we went in, so it wasn't too much of a long gap between them.
Nice one. So you had a fairly long summer holiday after the end of your exams until starting Thales then? Nice.
It's a nice treat for definite.
Sipho, I think you had a different journey again.
Yeah, so I went through the kind of entire process of going through college and university. So I studied journalism for sports journalism for 3 years. Upon leaving that, I just kind of realized that actually wasn't the route that I wanted to go down. I sort of fell into a sales job. And then 4.5 years later, kind of, became very sick of sales in general. Then decided to kind of, have a bit of a pivot career-wise. Initially, my choice was going to be to go and do my master's at university again within digital marketing. However, my girlfriend kind of raised the point that, well, why get into further debt when you can actually consider an apprenticeship? So I just kind of started looking around at that as an option. Ended up finding a listing that the Juice Academy was doing an advert. Went for the open day there. 8 hours later, I was offered a job at the People's History Museum.
Brilliant. Yeah, so just that demonstrates that you can go to university, study for a degree, but then change your mind later on. You can come and start an apprentice. And finally then, Charlotte, who I think's got a different story again.
Yeah, so mine is quite similar to Emma's. I was quite a high achiever in school, so I kind of got pushed down the college route. I hated exams from school. I wasn't good at them. I knew what I was meant to write. I just couldn't get it from my brain onto the piece of paper correctly. So I went to college. I did 3 A-levels in history, psychology and photography. I ended up coming out with an A-star in my photography, which kind of just proved to me that I was good at my practical subjects, and my more theoretical subjects I kind of struggled with a bit. So I just looked online on the government website and stumbled across Trafford Council's HR apprenticeship. And 4 years yesterday, I started there, and it's honestly been the best decision I've ever made.
Excellent, thank you very much. So moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit about the recruitment processes. So kind of like, how did you make your application? Were there any assessment days? What was the interview process like? So if I start this time with Charlotte, please.
So yeah, like I just said, I applied on the government website. It was a really easy website, and they always sent you like alerts of what apprenticeships were around at that time. So I just applied through there. It basically copies and pastes your application to whichever apprenticeship you apply for. So it is quite quick, but obviously you just have to make sure that you put in the right details in for that company. And I just applied for it, kind of left it. I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do because I'd applied for university to go to Liverpool John Moores to do a business management degree. So I just kind of applied and was like, oh, well, I'll see how it goes. And then I got an interview. The interview was compared to, I've heard different stories from different apprentices, so it was quite easy really. It was just a simple interview, just about teamwork, communication, why I wanted to work for Trafford and why I wanted to do an apprenticeship and why I thought that was the path for me. And then about a week later, I think I got the call to say that I'd got the job. It was just before I was starting my mock exams, so it was a really nice uplift just before I was going into such a stressful period. And that was it really. We did a short prioritisation exercise just to see what I'd do on a day-to-day basis if calls would come in and emails and things like that. So yeah, that was it really. It was quite a simple, streamlined process.
Okay, good to hear. Lewis, what was your recruitment process like?
So I had to take 3 days off school. However, they didn't obviously get marked down as authorised absences. And they were 3 sessions at the Apprentice Academy where I'd go, and that's where I created my CV, because I'd never made one before because I only had a part-time job in school at my family's business. So created the CV there. Again, did sort of mock interviews, little assessments like basic maths and English skills to prove that you've got them types of skills with you. And like I said, I also was applying through the government website. That's where I found Brother UK. So then, yeah, I got called in for an interview while I was still in school. So just sort of researched into Brother UK and what they do in the history and things like that. And like I said, I was lucky enough to the first interview that I got was the first job I got. So, yeah.
Excellent. How did you feel going into the interview? Was it a kind of stressful situation, or did they make you feel sort of really
the Apprentice Academy prepared me quite well for what types of questions they would ask and things like that. The most daunting part for me was I'd never really been in an office before. So just walking into there and going into like the meeting room and things like that was a bit daunting, but the questions and things like that I didn't find too difficult because I'd been quite well prepared by the Apprentice Academy and obviously done some research into the company. So
excellent, really good advice there. Sipho, what was your recruitment process like through the Juice Academy initially, wasn't it?
It was an interesting day. So in terms of actually even finding the adverts and stuff like that, I used to work within recruitment advertising. So I used to work for Reed and also Prospects, which is a graduate recruitment advertising website. So within those, I kind of had a knowledge of the different websites and different portals to actually kind of go through. And pretty much every website you go to, that's either Indeed, Total Jobs, and Reed, or wherever, they'll have an apprenticeship section. So I just kind of kept on looking in those kind of different areas until finally I came across the Juice Academy advert that they'd put up, applied, and then they kind of did the screening questions just to kind of see whether I was a fit for them, for them to actually present me to other employers. And then we went to an open day, which was it was sort of intense, but it was also really good because essentially we had 30 seconds to kind of present ourselves, and then the employers themselves had a minute to kind of pitch themselves to us as the apprentices there. There was about 14 employers and about 43 apprentices, I want to say. So quite a lot of competition. And throughout the course of the day, what we did was different group activities and whatnot. And then the employers would kind of be going around talking to people. And I just kind of made sure to, stick out as much as possible and just kind of engage in conversation with as many people as I could, during the actual sessions. And, within the group sessions actually as well, take a bit of a leadership role if I could. And just be very vocal. So as the day kind of went along, we did speed interviews, which was 2 minutes of sitting with each different employer, all 14 of them, and just basically getting to know each other a bit better, because some of them would have received profiles offers, so they kind of would have made pre-made decisions, and that would have either solidified their decision, or they would have actually, came out with a dark horse, so to say. So that started from like 9 a.m. in the morning, and by 4:30, 5 o'clock, the interview process was done. And we literally just one by one, if you had a job offer, you were called up to a room upstairs and then, kind of spoke with the employer. And my boss, Sarah, from the People's History Museum, just kind of said, yeah, we really liked you and you kind of stuck out for us. We'd like to offer you a job at the museum. And because I was just so excited about the whole day, I just accepted it straight away because I knew I really did not want to do sales anymore. I just wanted to actually pivot and actually change to something else. So that was a really intense day, but it was also really fun because I've been to interviews before whereby you will wait 2-3 weeks or even a month before finding out what the decision is. But with that day, I just found it out on the same day, knew where I stood.
So really interesting sort of method that's been used there. There's a way of multiple applicants effectively applying to multiple employers as well. That's a really interesting concept. I think you've given some good tips there about how to act and how to stand out on those assessment days as well.
Yeah.
So thank you. And finally, Emma, what was the recruitment process at Thales like?
Yeah, so like I said, I'd met Thales at an MMU careers fair, and that was in like November of my second year of college. And actually on that day I handed them a CV because my sister said make sure you get your name in early, so I did that. But you could also apply for an MMU emailing list, which would tell you when the applications officially opened. So then I think it was December the application opened, but that was just through the Thales website. And that was like a couple of questions like, why do you want to apply for Thales and why do you want an apprenticeship? And then I think you also put your CV in there as well. And then we got offered the assessment day, which was in April of my second year of college. And that consisted of an interview, which was really informal. The person who interviewed me is actually now my manager, and he at the time was like, it's just a chat, it's just to see if you fit in with the company more than, your skills, because I think especially for us, we hire a lot of people directly out of college, and if you're coming straight from college, I think they know you're not really going to have experience as a software engineer or a specified route, so it's more seen if you're a fit for the company. And then there was also a group task, which actually the 2 people in the group task are now my apprentices in my year as well, so we must have done well in the group task. And we did have a writing task, which was the worst one, like a comprehension, but I think they've removed that now, which makes sense for software. So, and then, like I said, on the same day, a couple of hours later, got offered the job. So it was also really quick and easy to be accepted and see if we wanted it, which was nice.
That's really good. So another example of an assessment day with one business, but a really sort of streamlined process there.
Yeah.
And the point you made about the interview was interesting as well, that not all interviews are the scary thing that you might perceive them to be before you go to one. That's really good. I'm going to move on now a little bit onto your actual job roles. So I'm going to ask you what your current responsibilities are at work, and how have they changed since the start of your apprenticeship? If I could start with Lewis, please.
So my role here, like I said, is product and solutions assistant. Brother have 4 main product sets which we sell, which is print, labeling, scan, and mobile print. So there's a team of 4 of us, and I look after the print side of things and sort of share scan with another member of the team. When I first joined, it was being basically introduced to all the different teams, how they work, the different products, how we sell them into different channels and things like that. Then it all sort of slowed down the amount of learning I was doing, because the company wanted me to prioritise my apprenticeship. And like I say, passed that around 6 months ago. So ever since then, it's just been mainly focusing on the products, pushing the sales and things like that. Things slowed down a little bit at the start of obviously the pandemic, but now we're back in the office. Sometimes it's picking back up again now and getting quite busy.
Okay, it's good to hear. Sipho, how's your role sort of progressed throughout your apprenticeship?
I kind of got chucked straight into the deep end, to be honest, which is what I prefer, because I feel like sometimes when you hear that it's an apprentice kind of coming into the office, sometimes people are kind of like, oh, you just drip feed, and you end up just being sat there for 8 hours of the day in the office, just bored out your brains, or just kind of trying to figure out your footing. But because of my sales background, my boss, she was basically kind of like, okay, yeah, I want you in charge of these donors and fundraising. So I kind of up with that kind of aspect in terms of the fundraising, and I was put in charge of a set of donors that were between £30 to £300 on an annual basis, and kind of trying to renew them, and basically find a way to actually kind of get back in and do some of the admin and stuff like that. And then it kind of evolved into a bit more things like Google, so Google ads and stuff like that. So I've essentially been put in charge of that. I'm pretty much the only one in the museum that deals with that. Video creation. So right now, for example, at the time, I was still learning a bit more about video and kind of getting comfortable. So created some little pieces that actually went onto the website. And also just basically anything to do with editing and video creation and content creation in general. So whether that's and also ads for the social media stuff. So ads on Facebook, Instagram, etc., and all general content that's going to go out. In terms of how my role has evolved and what I'm doing now, it's just a bit more working autonomously. So essentially, I'll just kind of be handed a project and they'll just say, kind of go make something happen, basically. And it's just that kind of trust and that, autonomous working that I really like. So, for example, right now, I am creating the reopening video for the museum when we open on the 1st of September. And I literally wrote the script, obviously ran it by my boss and stuff like that in terms of like important things to include. But I wrote the script, shot the entire video, editing it myself, and then just kind of sending it off for approval with any edits that I actually need and amendments that need to be done. So that's essentially how my role has kind of evolved from being thrown into the deep end and actually just now essentially just being given a brief in essence to just go create something.
That sounds really interesting. It sounds like you developed sort of a lot of additional skills throughout your apprenticeship as well.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of teaches you how to prioritize different things. I think for me it was a bit different because I had been working, so I kind of felt a bit more comfortable just giving me lots of stuff to actually do. And in some cases, I was actually coming in with input for different things to actually kind of try and implement within the organization. So for me, I don't know whether it was a unique case or just because of or just the way the museum kind of works. I don't really know, but yeah, that was kind of my experience really, and that's how I prefer it, because my perception of an apprenticeship, I just kind of had in my mind that they were just going to give me all the terrible and bad and annoying jobs that no one wanted to do, but it actually wasn't the case at all. It was actually the things that were very critical for the business and that were going to be within the public.
Brilliant, thank you for busting that myth for us. Charlotte, moving on to you now. You've been through 3 apprenticeships, so I'm guessing your role's changed quite considerably over the 4 years.
Yeah, it's changed quite a lot. So when I started in 2016, I was in the workforce strategy team doing a level 3 business admin apprenticeship. So I was supporting the team, doing like the low level work, helping with events, just doing little things. And obviously as the 4 years have gone on, I've started doing much more of those things. So one of the things is the Employee Recognition Awards. It's one of our benefits that we give to staff. So it's a large event. It's about 300 guests, and we organise that, and staff win prizes. So basically, my manager does that. She organises it. And the first year of my apprenticeship, I helped a little bit, like I dabbled in it. Then the next year I got a little bit more, and then last year I was basically like her right hand woman. I was there for every meeting, everything that went on I knew about. So it just shows how your role does progress while you're in an apprenticeship. You don't just stay at the same level. Like, the organisations are there to help you develop because they want to help you grow. Obviously I've seen that from doing my level 3 business admin, a level 3 CIPD, and now my level 5. I have actually moved teams onto the HR operations team. So probably everybody would know that as like the disciplinaries, the grievances, all the juicy stuff. So I am getting much more involved in that now, in like sickness absence cases. So that is really actually going to help me for my future career and my development. And it's a good it's been a good like stepping stone, and it's been a great kickstart to what will hopefully be a really positive HR career. Excellent,
thank you. And shortly we'll talk about your future career plans as well. And yeah, Emma, how has your role sort of progressed over your apprenticeship?
Yeah, just gonna say, because I work in defence, a lot of the work I do is sensitive, so it's hard for me to talk too much. But when I first started, I was doing research and development, so that's where you kind of look into things that are going to be used maybe 30 to 40 years in the future. It's good to start, I'd say, because it got me learning. I'd programmed before, but I'd never programmed in Java, so it got me learning that. But there was no project structure and the work wasn't really going anywhere. But then for the past year, I'm now developing and integrating new features onto our current submarine systems. So that's a lot more exciting. They're really complex. I've been learning like one bit at a time to hopefully one day just be able to work autonomously and on my own. But there's certain areas now which I definitely have a grip of, and certain areas which I still am yet to touch, but I've still got 2 more years. So I'm sure hopefully by the end we'll get there.
Sounds very interesting, and also quite sort of secret squirrel as well, so I'm very intrigued. So moving on, talk a little bit about how the training is delivered, because I'm guessing everyone's got a slightly different experience of that. So Charlotte, how was the training delivered by your provider for your apprenticeships?
So all 3 of my apprenticeships were delivered by Trafford College, and they've all been completely different. So my level 3 business admin was distant, but the way it was like looked at was projects, so things that I'd done, so I could attach them up to the system, and they could actually see the work I'd produced. Then my level 3 CIPD was night school. I used to go on a Thursday night, 5 till 9, after work. And that was all like written assignments, a few bits of like role play and presentations. And then my level 5's been a bit mixed, obviously, because of COVID. So it was meant to be on a Thursday afternoon, 12 till 4. That came to an end in March. And now it's completely distance at the moment. Obviously, I'm off for summer at the minute. Doesn't mean that I'm not doing anything, but I am off for summer. So we don't have any lessons at the moment. And in September, we are looking at going back. So all 3 of mine have been completely different. But it's been nice to know that I can work in all those different ways. It has kind of taught me what my learning styles are and what I prefer, but it has also taught me that I can learn in all those different ways as well.
Okay, thank you. So did you do an endpoint assessment for your second apprenticeship, the HR one?
Yeah, my level 3 CIPD, I did an endpoint assessment for that one.
Okay, and how did your training provider prepare you for that endpoint assessment?
So my training provider was really good. My CIPD assessor was the same as my apprenticeship assessor, so she understood what I'd been doing in class, she understood my work, and she used to come and see us every month. And we had, like, for the professional discussion, we had like a star matrix for the situation, task, action and result, so we could write everything down and have a look at what I was doing. I'd prepare the questions before she'd come in, and then we used to sit and just go through them and practice them to make sure I was picking like really good examples for all of the professional discussion.
Excellent. Was there anything else in addition to the professional discussion that was part of your endpoint assessment?
Yeah, there was a consultative project as well. So that was I think it was a 5,000 word project that was basically, we could pick the title of it out of about 5 or 6. So I wanted to support improving a process. So I looked at the work experience process and completely changed it. I led on the project for the council. So now I have changed it all. I had to do like it was kind of a bit like a mini dissertation really. So I had to do the research, I had to do aims, objectives, and then obviously do an implementation plan of what changes I was going to implement into the council as well. And then they both go off and get marked. You hand your consultative project in, and then you've got a day and your professional discussions the next day. And then you find out it's meant to be like 2 weeks later. I found out the day after, so we thought that I'd failed it because it had come in so quickly. But I'd passed it and everything was fine. So I'm just actually preparing at the minute for my level 5 endpoint assessment as well. It's not due until next year, but obviously we're starting early just to make sure that I'm getting all the right answers for the questions, especially for the professional discussion.
Excellent. Sounds really interesting. Sounds like you were really well prepared by the provider as well.
Yeah, the provider was amazing. My assessor for my level 3 is the same for my level 5 as well, so it has been really useful to obviously have that relationship built with her, and she understands how I work and I understand how she works, and it has worked really well, and we've got a really good working relationship there as well.
Excellent. Lewis, how was the training delivered by the Apprentice Academy?
So we started off, it was once a month you'd go into the academy for a session, for the first 7 months of the apprenticeship. So they'd teach you like telephone skills, how to be in meetings and things like that, basically like business fundamentals. And you'd also have a monthly visit from your mentor, so mine was called Emma, and each month there would be some sort of task that you'd have to complete. So the first 4 were presentations, so one on like business policies, 2 on say something you'd improve from the business, 1 on your job role and things like that, and then they'd get marked, and basically it all went towards your overall mark at the end, obviously then being completed with your endpoint assessment. So it's sort of like coursework in a sense. Then you get to the point where it's called Gateway, and you've basically done all your monthly like modules, and then it comes to a written exam and your endpoint assessment. So it was around 13 months in to mine, got called into the Apprentice Academy to do my written exam, and then around 2 weeks later the endpoint assessment for me was completed on like a Teams call like this, where I ran through a presentation on business improvements, which then they give you your final grade on around 2 weeks later. So
excellent. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for that. Emma, so how was your training delivered?
So because I'm actually doing a degree, I am a student at Manchester Metropolitan University, but we have our degree delivered differently to if we were a full-time undergrad. So we only do 1 day a week at university during just the standard term times. And if you go to university full-time, you'll have lectures kind of spread out through the week, but ours are all back-to-back. So it's kind of just like a day in the classroom kind of thing. All our things are assessed through assessments, just like a standard full-time undergrad. And just like the other two, we also have tutors come into work. So they're underneath the uni, but they liaise with our work as well. And we have like 4 reviews in a year where they just check that your work's on track and your degree's on track. So yeah.
So as well as the degree, you'll be doing, and will you be doing an endpoint assessment as well as what you're required to do for a degree?
Yes, so I think it is like you get your degree and the apprenticeship qualification. I could be wrong. So yeah, in the 4th year we'll also have an endpoint assessment, but I'm not entirely sure what it entails yet.
No, I think you're a little way off. Yeah. I think. How do you find that kind of 4 days at work, 1 day a week going into university? Do you like that kind of intense back-to-back classroom sessions?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like a lot of my friends that went to uni, think it's like scary, but I think because I came straight from college and I already kind of had that structure, it didn't really bother me too much. It's just kind of what I'm used to, so it wasn't a big lifestyle change really. Yeah.
Okay, and Sipho, how was the training delivered for you?
Okay, cool. So with myself, the training is provided by the Juice Academy. However, to kind of make sure that the quality of the training is up to standard and up to scratch, they've also partnered up with Apprentice. So the Juice Academy, basically, that training is provided, is a bit of a weird one, but that training from the Juice Academy is provided by Tangerine staff, so Tangerine PR and marketing.
Yeah.
Their staff come over and actually lead some sessions, just to kind of teach us a bit more about digital marketing, what you're expecting within that kind of realm of PR and content creation and stuff like that, and the process that kind of goes through, whether that's sessions with Tangerine's graphic designers, with community managers, with the social media managers, with the strategists and analysts and stuff like that. So they are the ones that actually lead the sessions, and then Apprentice kind of to make sure that whatever they're teaching us is actually up to scratch in a sense. So I do those sessions. Well, I used to. They finished in May, back end of May. I used to do them every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks on a Tuesday. I would go into Tangerine's offices and actually have like a classroom style learning within that. And if ever we needed any help from the tutors and stuff like that afterwards, they always gave us like their emails and stuff like that, so we can always get in touch with them. Or if we needed any extra training or resources, they will kind of point us in the right direction. Well, ever since COVID hit, it's been a case of we've been doing them online via Zoom, which has been quite interesting, but still just as effective, I feel, because again, it is kind of lecture and classroom style, so it's not really too much of a difference. And also, we're all kind of mature enough to not be messing around essentially whilst the session is being taught. So yeah, that's been quite good and effective.
Okay, and do you know yet what your endpoint assessment will consist of?
Yeah, it's essentially going to be a portfolio to kind of run through. What I'm doing anyway, I'm creating my portfolio that runs through the different criteria that they actually have laid out for the junior content producer model, if you will, and the assessment criteria. So I'm going to be creating a portfolio to go against that. And also I'm going to be doing a interview or the conversation, essentially just to kind of cover just kind of see my understanding of it. So it's a bit more practical in a sense, because it's not just a case of me writing a dissertation and theoretical content about what I understand, to actually have a conversation with an industry expert, just to kind of see what my understanding of it, whether that is around video, around Google, around social media marketing, around ads, and all sorts of different things.
So moving on to the sort of final questions from me before I move on to those from students and parents. Future career plans, what have you got in mind? So if I start with Charlotte, where do you see yourself in a few years?
So at the minute, I'm actually just looking at what I want to do after I've done my level 5. Obviously, because I've not gone to uni, I really want to do my masters in human resources management with a level 7 CIPD alongside it. So I'm looking at maybe starting that next September, because then I will be fully qualified with CIPD, which I would love to do. And I really just want to progress within Trafford Council at the minute, progress within HR, just while I'm undertaking that that next qualification. And then I really want to open my own HR consultancy. My mum and my dad both work for really small businesses that don't really have a HR representative with them. So I'd love to be able to represent companies like that by opening up my own consultancy.
Okay, sounds like you've got a long-term plan there. Excellent.
Yeah, just a bit.
Lewis, what are your sort of future career plans?
A little bit different at the minute with me obviously only being 18. But yeah, definitely progress within product management to the point where, you know, seen as sort of a product expert, especially in print, which I look after at the moment, and get more of a knowledge of all of the product sets. So as a whole, you know, be quite highly skilled in that sector. However, product management at Brother is all part of the marketing team. So there's around 30 of us in the marketing team with 5 different sectors in there. So I had discussions with my manager around how we could maybe move into different sections of marketing and basically just learn the different aspects of it. And I have got plans as well to do a higher apprenticeship maybe next year or the year after that. Excellent.
So like Trafford Council with Charlotte, our Brother sort of supportive of your sort of doing further apprenticeships?
Yeah, definitely. There's another Aaron in our team is currently doing one, and the other member of our team, Tom, has just also passed his apprenticeship. So yeah, brother are great support here for things like that.
Excellent. Sipho, your future plans?
Mine, kind of long term, is to progress as much as I can through the People's History Museum, and eventually I would be interested in, you know, in the future in either being like a marketing manager either internally, or go into an agency and perhaps work myself way up to, you know, account manager, account director level. But that's kind of, you know, further down the line. And in the immediate future, certainly within the next 2 or 3 years, I'm definitely interested in staying within the People's History Museum, just kind of seeing how much I can progress there and learn there and actually, you know, contribute to the overall company.
Excellent. Again, it sounds like, again, that's a really sort of supportive environment to sort of continue learning and developing in.
Yeah, definitely, because with a lot of it as well, within the marketing team, there's essentially the marketing manager, marketing officer, and then myself. But the museum has such a whole scope and a whole range of things that they actually do. So there's so many things that we are not actually doing at the moment, which we could actually utilize. And that's where I could actually come in. So whether to actually lead the projects myself or even just actually, well, for me to actually learn about the different aspects first, and then actually eventually lead projects in the future, whether that's around new social media strategies and avenues that we haven't actually explored in the past, i.e. like a TikTok, or growing our LinkedIn following, or utilizing different things for fundraising aspects, or, you know, something along those lines. I have the opportunity to actually just be the specialist within that and actually learn as much as I can, and, you know, not only learn and grow myself, but also give back to the organization and the company.
Yes, it sounds like you got the opportunity effectively to drive something forward, which is always good. And Emma, what are your future career plans?
Well, hopefully a lot of people can relate when I say that I honestly have no idea yet. But I think in the tech sector, there is so much going on. It's changing every year. There's so much new stuff coming out. I'd love, in the 4th year of uni, I'm going to take a module in user experience, and I'm hoping that's something that really interests me. I've kind of dabbled in it at work, but not massively. So really, I'm just seeing what comes up, seeing what opportunities arrive, and see what happens in the future. But yeah.
Brilliant. All right, thanks very much. Well, they're all the questions from me. As I mentioned, we've also got some questions that have been submitted from students and a parent as well. So I'm going to throw these at you. So the first one is from a former Hopwood Hall College student who says, I seem to be struggling to find apprenticeships that I'm interested in, as I don't have the right qualifications or experience for them. Do you have any advice for me? Charlotte, it's a kind of a bit of an HR question, so I'll start with you.
It's really, isn't it? You're testing me now. So yeah, I would really recommend trying to get work experience even within that company. So you could email them and just say, I've seen this apprenticeship, I'd love to find out a bit more about your company. Could I come in and shadow someone for a couple of weeks? Even any other company that has that, it depends what you're interested in, obviously. So for myself, like let's say it was a HR apprenticeship, I could go to and ask a HR consultancy. Could I go and shadow those for a bit? Could I go and speak to, I always speak to my mum and my dad about things like this because they have such a big network of people who they know work. My mum said, oh, I know a director in HR, why don't you go and shadow her for a few days? And it's just little things like that that you need to pull on your network and the people that you know to be able to get those experiences. And then online courses. I've been doing a few online courses at the minute to do with HR. Obviously, it's my job, but there are a lot out there that you can have a look at and do to be able to get the experience that you need. Qualification-wise, it depends. I know when you do your level 2 or 3 business admin at Trafford, I'm sure they put you through like a functional skills for your English and maths. So if it's your English and maths that you've not got, then some training providers will be willing to do that. They just need to make sure that you're at an appropriate level to be able to undertake the apprenticeship, and then they'll look at your English and maths from there. So yeah, that's what I'd do. Just carry on looking and don't give up.
Thank you. Anyone else got any other advice they'd like to add?
I would say, kind of piggybacking on what Charlotte just said as well, in terms of work experience as well, for example, we've actually just had a person just kind of get in touch with us at the museum, and she said she's going to study history next year at university. However, she wants to actually get a bit more experience under her belt and stuff like that. Literally just reached out via email, and also there was another person that reached out via LinkedIn. So it's just a case of reaching out to different businesses, and I think more often than not, they're never going to turn down any kind of help or any kind of interest within their business, just kind of understand the role. So I definitely think that is definitely the way to go forward, because a lot of times employers look for experience. If you kind of go, you know, you may not be the most qualified person on paper per se, but if you actually show that willingness to actually go and learn and go and get some kind of experience of some sort, and actually that will help not only you in the long run in terms of showing that you're a go-getter, but it will also help you understand like what fits you, what doesn't fit you. So say for example, if you go to a company and just say, okay, yeah, I'm thinking about doing a HR apprenticeship, can I, you know, shadow someone within your HR department, or so can I shadow someone within your marketing department, or I don't know, fundraising, like all sorts of different industries, and that'll kind of give you a feel for what is right for you and what actually isn't right for you in the future.
Yeah, and I think as well, it doesn't have to be like a traditional work experience placement of like 2 weeks. You could literally just go and have a conversation with someone and say, what do you do? And understand about what that role is and why and how they have progressed into that role. I think that would be really helpful as well.
What I like to do, a couple of things. I spent a heck of a lot of time on YouTube kind of researching the different roles as well. And because I did journalism, so I was trying to understand the difference between PR and marketing and stuff like that. So that actually really helped me a lot as well. And whenever I actually get the opportunity, if I see someone within a successful position within a particular role, I always ask them, like, what's their background, and often not, they will be coming from a completely different background from out of left field, which you wouldn't necessarily expect. So you kind of get their story arc and actually see how the trajectory went about and changed. For example, the founder of Tangerine, Sandy, she literally just said her career began when she was working as a receptionist, some years ago, just doing your basic secretarial work. And then she was also into creating things and drawing and stuff like that, and actually creating little animations. Next thing you know, she started doing some animations for the business, and that literally blossomed, kind of snowballed into her having one of the most successful PR and marketing companies around the UK. So just kind of getting that story arc, it helps, build a better idea of what, could actually be possible for yourself and be motivational in a sense.
Brilliant, thank you. Really good ideas there. Question from a former Manchester Communications Academy student. I think I'll put this to Lewis first of all, if that's right. How did you feel when you first started working as an apprentice?
Well, like I say, I was 16. I'd never really worked or even been in an office before. The Apprentice Academy on the sessions that I went to before starting made me, they familiarise you with the things that are going to probably be thrown at you. My first day at Brother, the first few hours were spent up at, so there's two buildings here. We got Brother UK and Brother Europe, and half of my day was spent up at Brother Europe, being spoken to by HR, going through all the company policies and procedures, the sort of like codes of conduct and things like that, and the global charter. Basically just explaining what Brother do. Then I got a tour around the office by my manager, who basically introduced me to all the different teams, all the directors. So I felt really comfortable. Again, was a bit clueless on what the work was going to hold for me, but no, the people in the business made me feel confident and comfortable. And I was kind of thrown in at the deep end doing sort of training presentations for the sales staff around 2 or 3 weeks in, which I prefer to learn that way anyway. So I'll be thrown in at the deep end instead of, like we were saying before, not just doing the jobs that no one else wants to do.
All right, thank you. Emma, how did you feel at the start of your degree apprenticeship?
I was definitely very nervous. I was also quite young, like 18, straight out of college. I'd only really worked in retail for like a couple of months before starting the job. And actually, when we first started in Apprentice in the year above, had organised like a couple of weeks of activities for us, which was really nice. I try and carry that on now, like greeting new starters. So I hope other companies also have something like that to make you feel settled in, a bit more comfortable. We had buddies and stuff to kind of make sure you had someone you could go to. And yeah, it was a really fast learning curve too. It wasn't mundane jobs. But like Lewis said, that was pretty good for getting settled in quickly. I mean, like in my latest blog post I did, I said it's like meeting someone else's family for the first time. You feel really out of your depth, and then you settle in and you get to know everyone, and it all ends up okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question. I think I'll throw this one to all of you, and I'll start with Sipho on this one. What's the hardest thing you've experienced from with your apprenticeship? And that's from a former Whalley Range sixth form student.
I think it's just those initial weeks or maybe a month where you don't know kind of anyone, and it's just a new environment, and everything is just new. So it's kind of like going to a new school, or as Emma just said, meeting like a new family or whatever it may be. You don't know what to expect. You don't know how the people are going to be. You don't know, and also kind of what the work is going to entail. So I think it's just coming to it with a sense of enthusiasm is the kind of key to actually overcoming that in terms of actually not knowing what you're going to be getting. For me, definitely, it was a case of, I know I was thrown into a deep end, which I enjoyed, but at the same time, I was like, where do I even begin? Because the museum does so many different things. And I just didn't really know where to even begin in terms of structure to actually get to understand the company a bit better, the organization a bit better. So even to this day, I'm still learning a lot of things. And I think that's always going to be the hardest aspect, really, just the unknown and like just being new to the environment and the work and what the business does.
Okay, thank you. Charlotte, what's the most challenging part of your apprenticeship?
There's obviously a few challenges like there is with everything, but I would probably say working and learning at the same time, especially now doing my level 5, because it is much more assignment based. It's not something that I can do while I'm in work because it's completely separate. Where my level 3 business admin, I was doing the work in work to prove for my apprenticeship, if that makes sense. It kind of linked together, where now it's completely separate. Even though I am working in HR, it is more theory. It's not really what I'm doing in the office. So that can be quite difficult. Obviously, you want to have a work-life balance as well. So trying to have your work-life balance, save, do everything that you want to do, and do a qualification on top of that. It can be challenging at times, but I think I just kind of look at it as once I do it, I've got it. It's 2 years or however long your apprenticeship is of sometimes stress, but fun and great experiences and knowledge. And at the end of it, no one can take that away from you. Then it's yours and you've worked hard to get where you are. So even though it's challenging, it is rewarding all at the same time.
Excellent. It's a nice segue there because we actually have a question from a former student from Blessed Thomas Holford School as well, who's actually specifically asked about how you find working full time and studying at the same time. Emma, you touched on sort of the balance of yours. How do you find that intensity of going in 1 day a week and then going back to the office? I suppose which one of them is more intense?
I think it's intense when our assignments are due at university, for sure. I'm sure plenty of people in school are used to leaving things to last minute, and you absolutely cannot do that because you have to go to work and then go home and do your assignments. And I do feel really lucky because at Thales they let us do university work in work. And when it does get intense, we can just work from home and just do pure uni work, but not every company will let you do that. It was a definite adjustment to try and figure out, okay, when am I going to do assignments and when am I going to do my actual work? And you do have to find a work-life balance, and that can be hard, but you do get there. I kind of always make sure I have weekends off and stuff, unless it's before an assignment's due, just to kind of have that time for myself and do things in the evening, or because I work like 7 till 3-ish. I'll try and do like work in the morning and university work in the afternoon, so I've got more of my actual job being done than uni work, but I'm still kind of balancing it out. I think you just got to learn time management and make sure you've spread it out and not done it all the night before.
Excellent, really helpful tip there as well, thank you. We've got a question from a parent of a student at Blessed Thomas Holford. I think we've touched on this already and we've busted this myth, but she asked, what sort of work are you doing at the moment? Is it mainly shadowing? And I think you're all shaking your heads. I think we've already touched on that you've got really crucial roles within your own particular businesses that you are contributing to each of those businesses. So unless anyone's got anything to add to what we talked about before, I can move on to the final question.
Just probably because I'm doing my development piece as well with my level 5, I am shadowing a little bit more than I was probably, but that isn't my job, if that makes sense. It's not my job to shadow. It's on top of my job that I shadow.
Right.
So I'm shadowing like the disciplinaries, grievances, sickness, absence cases, as part on top of my roles basically, just to get me learning more about the advisory and consultancy roles than being a HR officer.
Brilliant. Okay.
The shadowing aspect is just part of any job role, really. So, for example, even if you come in and not doing an apprenticeship, you come in as a HR assistant, marketing assistant, or I don't know, whatever job role it may be. You need to kind of shadow someone to actually understand the basics of how to do the role in the first place. So there's always going to be an element of that in the beginning. However, as the role kind of progresses, I think the expectation is that once you've seen it, 2, 3, 4, 5 times or whatever it may be, there's expectation that you need to start doing it yourself, and that's when the kind of onus becomes on you. And touching upon the idea of, work-life balance and like the challenges around that as well. It's a case of you kind of get in, you get out what you put in. So if you're able to put in long hours and do all the grueling tasks of like your work and also the uni stuff, then you will kind of at the end of it get the good results and actually get their experience and be an attractive potential employee. So I think those, the shadowing aspect and also the work that you put in is it's all up to you really, and it's expected.
All right, thank you very much. And final question is from a member of staff at Aquinas Sixth Form College. And he asks, what advice would you give to students when trying to decide to go for an apprenticeship opportunity? So I think maybe one key piece of advice from each of you. So Lewis, what would you advise a potential apprentice?
I would say don't rush into your decision. If it's not something that you fully want to do, don't take that, because it can be quite difficult to get back out of the situation once that you're in it. So sit down and have a proper think of what you want to do, how long you want to do it for, and what you want to get out of the end of it, I would say. So yeah, basically just not rush your decision. All
right, thank you. Emma?
I would say make sure it's your decision and not anyone else's decision. With the pushiness of teachers, maybe some parents, make sure you're doing what you actually want to do, because no matter what route you take, there's going to be good sides and bad sides. But if it's what you wanted to do, then you'll be happy doing it.
All right, thank you. Sipho?
Mine is actually going to go against Lewis's a little bit, in a sense that, so within apprenticeship, I feel like you have the opportunity and flexibility to do a whole lot of different things. As Charlotte has just done, she's done she's on her third apprenticeship now, and there's always that option of doing something else. So if hypothetically, if she decides, actually maybe HR just isn't for me, what's to stop her from actually going and doing a software engineering apprenticeship or marketing or anything like that? So I feel like with an apprenticeship, you kind of, if it's something that you're actually interested in, research it obviously as much as you can and try and go for it, because worst case scenario, especially if you're young, if you're like 17, 18, 19 or whatever, or early 20s, you can be like, okay, maybe I did this for a year. This apprenticeship really wasn't for me. Let me actually try to do something different. Whereas if you say you go to like a university, if you decide, okay, uni is the one for me, or if you feel like you're forced into actually going into uni, then you've kind of lost your 3 or 4 years of eligibility there. And then it's kind of like, oh, damn, I did the wrong course. Now I can't go back to uni and do the course I actually want. So I think with an apprenticeship, there's that sense of flexibility that's actually available that isn't there in any other kind of learning and educational direction. So I think just go for it, and worst case scenario, you'll gain experience. You may lose like a year's worth, of time, but you will gain invaluable experience, which you can take into either your next job or your next apprenticeship or your next whatever that you're actually doing. And it'll be like a stepping stone, as opposed to actually just kind of having your hands tied after, like myself. Well, I felt like I had my hands tied after university because I felt like I didn't really do the right course. So that's all I'd say, really.
All right, thank you. No, really, really useful point. Thank you. And finally, Charlotte, what piece of advice would you give?
Well, it's kind of what I did, and it worked well for me. So I, like a lot of people, kind of got forced to apply for uni in college, and I just deferred my uni entrance for a year. So you have got that option. So my apprenticeship was only a year when I started it. It was the framework, so they were only a year then. But I just deferred my uni entrance for a year because I thought, okay, well, if I do this year, it's only a year and I've got another qualification. And if I don't like it and I think I want to go to uni, I can. And I also thought, well, then I've got the option of staying if I want to stay. And obviously I've stayed. I'm here now. So I stuck it out. But it gives you that flexibility to decide what you actually want to do. I think 16 and 18, they're young to make these decisions. Like, it is a young age to think what you want to do for the rest of your life, pretty much. And I don't really think any of us would say that we know what we want to do. We think we know, but it might not be what we actually really want. So that's my advice really. I did it and it's worked well for me, but obviously it might not work the best for everyone.
No, thank you. A useful tip of being able to keep both options in play at the same time. It's a good idea. Right, that's it for the end of the questions. So thank you very much to Charlotte, Sipho, Lewis and Emma. As we mentioned at the start, this is part of the Greater Manchester Virtual Apprenticeship Week, running from the 12th to the 21st of August. And as you can see in front of you, a number of different events that are going on across those weeks. You're welcome to join me again for myth busting for parents and carers on the 18th of August, where I'll be giving you an up-to-date overview of what an apprenticeship is and a chance for you to ask any questions. As well as thanking the 4 Greater Manchester Apprenticeship ambassadors today, I'd like to say a quick thank you to their employers as well: Trafford Council, People's History Museum, Brother UK and Thales, for giving up the allowing their staff to give up their time to join us today. And as it gets said, thank you very much to everyone that's contributed. It's been a really useful and engaging conversation. Thank you very much.